Okay, everybody, good afternoon. I am here this afternoon with John Walkup from UrbanDigs, who also co-hosts a very popular podcast in New York City called Talking Manhattan. And I'm also here with Marc who is the Associate Dean at the Schack Institute of Real Estate at New York University, or NYU as we lovingly call it. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. I want to talk a little bit about what New York City is looking for from an elected official. For example, we have a mayoral race coming up. We have primaries going on. We're not here to be political. We're not here to pick sides. We're not here to pick party. But from an industry experience perspective, what is it that we as professionals in real estate, who generate a lot of revenue for our city every year in real estate, what is it we're looking for? John, I'll start with you. What kind of leader can help us achieve our short-term goals and long-term goals in New York City real estate?
Well, it's a great question, and I appreciate your point about not getting political. But sometimes when you say,
it's easy to do so, but the noise kind of clouds the real need.
You kind of want a leader who's going to make clear and sensible decisions, and I think some people would actually take that as a political point these days.
Yeah.
Look, I think we passed the City of Yes last year. I think that's a phenomenal step, but it's a start. And I think what I'd like to see is a mayor who comes in and is willing to work with the city council and work with industry representatives to really kind of push that. It's not about necessarily opening up the regulations. It's also sort of getting rid of some of the red tape that we've got in there. I think that's the first thing I'd like to see is a mayor who's interested in physically developing the city as well as developing the infrastructure to host a larger amount of people.
Interesting you use the word regulation. When I talk to other agents, whether it's on my show or anywhere, and I use the word regulation, they kind of look at me like, you want me to talk about that? What does that really mean? Should I know that? Help the audience understand what kind of regulations we're referring to when we talk about real estate here in New York. Things change, right? Things change regularly. Different codes, different building requirements, whatever. Summarize just quickly for us what regulations we're talking about.
Well, I don't think there's any single regulation per se, but there's just, as Marc can testify, there is a web of regulatory agencies out there from the city to the state that are all intersecting, community boards even, so everyone's got a say in the final project, and everyone is slightly different, and no one's really talking to each other in the way that I think it would be helpful to see. So a transparent pipeline for development that sort of smooths that process, I think would be very helpful, and that's something that a strong mayor who's interested in pushing a real estate agenda could helpfully get done.
Yeah, we're going to get a little bit into the need for more housing in general, affordable housing. As we all know, in real estate these days in New York, we have a freeze on inventory, and there are a whole bunch of reasons for it. We'll get into that in a minute, but Marc, your perspective on the type of leader that you would like to see in our industry, in our city, based on the industry that we work in. And your organization, NYU, teaches brand new real estate students, graduate real estate students, certificate programs, which are the experience, and also continuing ed students who have been out there in the field. So what are they saying to you by way of what we need in our city?
Yeah, to the point about City of Yes, I've talked to developers now that are like, I can reconfigure the building better. I can do 50 more units. I can do 4 more stories. It's a more efficient layout, and it ultimately will be more cost effective. So things like City of Yes are incredibly important, but I also think the negotiation of it. So in a leader, for me, you're not just negotiating with the city council. New York is so big and so important, but also so many things are controlled by the state and so dependent on the federal government that you need somebody that can negotiate all of those different parties and navigate those kind of headwinds.
Hey, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you hear a lot about how crucial it is to have the right partners in this industry. At Roadway, we don't just move your clients, we give them an experience they'll love. Specialized services to our white glove treatment, it's all about making sure your clients feel taken care of every step of the way. And if you're looking for a rewarding referral program, reach out to me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Investors, this is your moment. I'm Scott Nadler with Cross Country Mortgage, and whether you're starting out or growing your empire, I've got the loan solutions to make your next move a success. Let's talk today.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. You know, we talk about city hall, city council, whatever. Very unpopular decision at the end of last year, beginning of this year, with the Fair Act, okay, where, you know, on the rental side of the business, okay, and this affects the agents in our industry not being paid. So in other words, if I'm working with a tenant, unless I get them to agree to pay me, whatever it is, 1 month, and if they say yes or they say no, the only people who really are getting paid legitimately now are the listing agents paid by the landlord or the owner of a unit. How do you think that's going to fare in the rest of our industry out there? We also have new regulations on the buy side, okay, with the NAR commission settlement. So agents in our business today are facing all kinds of changes in our industry that we've never been prepared for in the past. How do you think that's flying? You talk to a lot of agents on your podcast. What is the popular thought on both the Fair Act and on the NAR settlement?
Well, I like the pun about the Fair Act and whether, you know, how it's going to fare. That's good. I don't know if that's intentional, but it worked well.
Pun intended.
Right, there we go. No, so you're right. So we really talk to a ton of agents all across the spectrum, and it seems like the fear is more concentrated on the folks that do the mainly rental side. We notice a lot of the top performing agents are just used to obstacles and stresses coming their way, and they just roll over. Right? They've got a business, they've got a practice, more importantly, they have a process. And if they have to tweak it, they do it. It's a profession to them. And I feel like, you know, part of the problem with the Fair Act is the industry's reputation as a whole. And it kind of put its own foot in the hole, so to speak. There's a lot of agents out there, and, you know, a lot of us have experienced agents who don't necessarily live up to the transparency, the professionalism, and the courtesy that I think most people would expect from a professional real estate agent. So you have things like the Fair Act, not necessarily because of this entirely, but the idea is that you kind of get what you expect to get. And I think we sort of shot ourselves in the foot there. But I think the top agents are just rolling along. They're taking it in stride. They're adjusting their businesses to reflect this fact, and they're growing their network. Which, at the end of the day, you grow your network, you get the leads in, and you start doing business, and that's what it's all about.
You know, it's so funny. I said to somebody earlier today, it seems like everybody outside of our industry has their hands in our pocket and wanting to take money from us. Commissions has never been very popular with either renters or buyers. So I said to this person who lost it, I said, I'm going to go to the store and start buying pants that don't have pockets in it, okay? Because I ain't going to deal with this stuff.
I think we're going to save that for the nighttime.
Or save that for
That's
the
a nighttime topic.
Get your hand out of my pocket, goddammit.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, I agree. If we stay focused, and if we stay focused on what we do as real estate agents, the end goal is always to successfully transact business with either a buyer or a seller. We'll get to that in a minute. But Marc, let me ask you something. So from an affordable housing perspective, and we have a housing shortage, period.
Oh, yeah.
Here in New York. Across the board. Affordable, regular, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
How do we accomplish that as a city? Now, I know, you know, New York City, big bad city, a lot going on. We talked about the kind of leader that we would like to see at some point, if we can find, or if current ones can step up. But why is it such a problem in this town to build enough housing to satisfy everybody? I'm a new development condo specialist. I've been selling brand new condominiums for years and years.
Yeah.
I haven't been on a project in almost 2 years.
Huh.
So developers have felt a squeeze. Now we're talking about luxury, okay,
Yeah.
So there's two sides of the story. Developers have felt the squeeze with additional construction costs, interest rates going up on their financing, so they've kind of pulled back a little bit. And then buyers, for all of the inventory that's out there, buyers are saying, well, I don't know if I can really afford it, I'm going to wait a little bit, whatever.
Yeah.
So from across the board, luxury, affordable, and everything in between, what is our problem? What's like the root cause of why we can't build enough housing, make enough housing affordable for everybody?
Yeah. I mean, we could focus on the housing part for sure. But I think it's important to also look at the income side, stagnant wages, changing kinds of jobs. And so for the cost of construction, the kinds of incomes you would need, right? Just to even break even as a developer, right? You see them in the not even luxury market, right? The $6,000 one bedroom, the $7,000, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, right? I mean, you see the $1.2 million condo. So there's just a limit to what people can afford. And then once you do that, you're still in New York City, right? So what's your maintenance? What are your taxes? What are your other things? So that's on the side of the person trying to buy or rent. But then, for the developers, like, how long is it going to take to get through the process? And what economy are we going to be in the 3 years after you get through the regulatory process, right? So like the people 3 years ago, 4 years ago, they were in a lower interest rate environment, right? In a non-tariffed environment, right? Are now coming into the market in a different place. So I don't know how you fix that, but I think looking at the income side, so like that's why like the next mayor, whoever that is, has to think about the job part and the housing part. You can't just say we're going to create 100,000 units, right? You also need and we're going to create 100,000 good paying jobs, right, that match those expenses.
Yeah. You have to have the paying jobs for the people to then turn around and use that to buy real estate.
Yeah.
Right?
And this, I think, is why interesting is such an interesting industry, because it's not, in addition to the jobs, you have to have a transportation structure to move people around, and then you also have, the idea of quality of life. The amount of trash on the street is unbelievable. It's little things like this that sort of add up to sort of, people don't want to buy here, they want to buy there. So you have developers focused on, they're trying to react to short-term stimulus in a long-term manner. So, if everyone wants to live in the West Village or Midtown South, that's where they're going to focus their attention, even though in the long term it might be helpful to build out in the outer boroughs, other places but they just can't. They don't have
I remember the
support
days when I first started selling new development, and we're talking like 17, 18 years ago, where developers would say, oh, I'm going to build a building over here, or I'm going to build a building in this neighborhood, I'm going to build and they'll just all come. And I'd be like, okay. And I remember one of the last buildings I worked on the Upper East Side, I thought to myself, this developer thinks he's going to get people from all over the place. If you live on the East Side, you want to stay on the East Side. If you live downtown, you want to stay on and on and on. Well, let me tell you something. More than half that building on the Upper East Side was bought by people who were coming from downtown. And the developer actually proved his point when I kept saying, no, we're not going to get people from downtown, whatever. People will now go wherever they feel they need to. But I wanted to also get into the lifestyle aspect of purchasing, because what I'm finding is buying real estate in Manhattan, in New York City rather, is a personal thing. And those who actually pull the trigger and buy, it's very personal to them, because our pricing here is very high compared to the rest of the country. Okay? So they're looking for a lifestyle. They're looking for something that they can call home. When they come home at night, put their head on the pillow, they feel good about their choice. They feel good about their building. They feel good about their home, about the neighborhood, on and on and on and on. Do you find that in real estate, in your world these days, that those who are actually pulling the trigger are those who are looking more or past the actual cost or the interest rate or all the other noise we hear about, and they're buying because they want to increase their lifestyle?
I think so. I think it's a great question, and I think it's really an existential question for New York City real estate, because you have to want to be here to pull that trigger, because you do have other choices, especially in the era of remote work, that are just far less expensive. You look at homes in Texas and Florida, and you look at the amount of growth that those sales markets have done post-pandemic, and it's incredible. And I think maybe they're cooling a little bit now, but you look at our market, and it's just tough. And you think about trying to come up with a down payment on a $1.5 million two-bedroom, it's
a lot of money.
You really got to want it to do it. And, to your point, that Upper East Side buyer, right, when the 2nd Avenue subway come in, we're starting to see a lot of development up and down that corridor. But again, it's that high-end, very luxury development. Rentals are going for $8,000 a month. These are not places that a family of 4, middle-class families, 4 or 5 is going to come in and say, all right, great, I can do this, I'm on my job. You really have to have dual income, high level, to really keep the enforce sustain it. So it very much is a lifestyle choice.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. And and then there are those like it because the rental market is so on fire and so high and continuing to increase. And I got a call the other day, someone moving into the city from the Midwest, and they're looking for a 2-bedroom. And they gave me specific neighborhoods, And I said, okay, so what's your budget? Well, the budget's anywhere from $18,000 to $23,000 a month. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm talking on the phone, trying to stay coherent, $18,000 or $23,000 a month to rent a 2-bedroom. So what do you think my next question was? Would you consider buying?
Yeah.
Well, and the answer was no.
Yeah.
The answer was no. We have 2 other assets, in other parts of the country. We don't really need to buy. And I'm like,
we pulled this point for a journalist just yesterday. There have been, I think, over 300 rentals in the city in 2025 asking over $20,000 a month.
Yeah. It's staggering to me. But again,
But that's also the lifestyle question, right?
Yeah.
Because, I've seen this with friends that are brokers in LA, in Miami. It's like, this isn't the only place these people are going to be. I don't know if they own something someplace else, whether it be Florida, the Bahamas, the Hamptons, or someplace else. But I feel like, you're talking about somebody that's relatively savvy. Like, I don't actually get the math, and I'm good at math. But, like, for them, like, the math works. It's like, I'm not committed, right?
Yeah.
I might leave in a year. I might leave in 2 years. I might change buildings.
right.
It's that optionality.
Yeah.
And that's what this guy said to me. He said, listen, if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, I'll look for something else or I'll move. And I'm thinking, all right, well, so a lot of disposable cash or income coming into that household and looking to go out. We have a few minutes left. Let me ask you, we're going to get to memorable in a minute, but what's the highlight of your day, generally speaking?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
What is the highlight of your day?
The highlight
generally
of my day?
speaking.
Honestly, I'm a walker, so I like to get out, walk the dog, walk around the park. I live on East End Avenue. There's Carl Schurz Park, so I
I
love to
love
walk
East
through
End
that.
Avenue. Oh my God.
It's about as suburban as you can get. I
It
suppose,
is,
in the
yes.
city.
I
And
almost
that's the
lived on
highlight
East
of
End
my
Avenue.
day. It's quiet, it's peaceful, and I
Yeah.
love walking around the city. I mean, I grew up in Texas, so when I came here, it was just like, there's no place else I want to be. Now, that feeling does ebb and flow, but for the most part, the highlight of my day is just getting out and enjoying the city.
Yeah.
As most New Yorkers like to do, right?
Yeah.
Mark, what is your highlight of the day?
I mean, it's going to sound strange. I'm going to say going to work because I work across the street from the public library in Bryant Park.
Yeah, you do.
And I walk in the door and they're eager real estate students swarming me, mostly asking for jobs. But it kind of reminds you, it's like, I'm a Californian, but it's like, you're like, every day I'm like, I'm in New York City. Even after 20-something years, I'm like, I'm in New York City. And like,
It never gets old.
Yeah.
I'm living here. I'm a New
Yeah.
Yorker, but I'm living here from the suburbs. Living
Yeah.
here almost 30 years.
yeah, well, the trash gets
Yeah.
old. Sometimes
Well,
the trash gets old.
The trash gets old, and a lot of stuff like that gets old.
Yeah.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business. And it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
But I agree with you because there are days when I say to myself, you know what? Okay, because I'm in New York City.
Yeah.
And I still say that 30 years later. We have a few minutes left, and I wanted to ask both of you, I have a big thing, and I've been asking everybody I'm talking to today, I have a big thing about being memorable, okay? I like to be memorable. I like to leave my mark, for lack of a better way to say that, with people, with a person, with a group, whatever it is I'm doing for a day, teaching. I start my day every day saying, okay, thank you for giving me another day. Like you, Mark, I look forward to getting out the door and going to work because I love what I do. And I think you need to love this industry and this business to do it well and successfully. And I have my hands in everything, teaching, podcasting, selling real estate. enough already. But I say, after thank you, how are you going to be memorable today? How are you going to leave your mark today? And in real estate, my day can change 5 times before it even starts, okay? When I come home at night, I say to myself, every day, because it's an everyday thing, and people say to me, what do you mean every day? I got to be memorable every day? And I'm like, yes, you do. I come home and I say to myself, were you memorable today? There are going to be days where it's a miss. Not many, but there are going to be days where it's a miss. And then there are going to be days like, wow, okay, I really accomplished my memorable goal. Do you think about that, John? Do you worry about being memorable? Do you want to be memorable? And if so, how do you do that daily? Because daily is important.
That's a great question. I mean, yes, I suppose short term perhaps, but I'm always reminded of the Ozymandias poem, right? I mean, it's all going to turn to dust eventually. So I'm less concerned about being remembered as much as I am setting an example in the moment. Look, I've got two kids,
that's being memorable.
And their world is changing very rapidly. And I suppose as a kid, my world was changing too, but when you're tied up in it, you don't necessarily recognize it. So, one's in college, one's in high school, and the emergence of AI, social media, they've gone through all of that. So I'm consciously just trying to set that example of how I think a human being should live and act in 2025.
Yeah.
Marc. And again, being memorable is not necessarily about us, it's about what we leave behind. Yeah. That people say, okay, I'm not going to forget John. Wow, that was something.
Yeah.
Could be just a word, right?
Yeah. I mean, I want to be memorable for the right reasons, right? Because you can be, I don't know if infamous and memorable or like interchangeable.
It's easy to be memorable for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know that.
But I noticed even actually with you today, somebody came up to you and you were like, I met you 8 years ago with this person and that person. And so like that impresses me because not only are you memorable, you're remembering. And I think that's what people want to like feel welcome. They want to feel like you understand them, that you're paying attention, that you're listening. And so I think I'm going to like turn it around to a compliment. Like, you're memorable because people remember you.
Correct. Because of something you said, because of something you do. Somebody said to me earlier today, it's just that little bit of kindness.
Yeah.
That sometimes, in this big old city of ours, we lack on the kindness side, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And because people are busy, it always amazes me. Everybody says, oh, I'm busy. Well, New Yorkers are always busy. And I always say, what the hell are you doing? You're so busy, right? Calm down, settle down. And being memorable is maybe just that one act of kindness. Yeah. Maybe it's remembering somebody that you hadn't seen in years.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something you say to somebody else, whatever that may be.
But it's interesting. I like your point because New York, at its core, is a city of neighborhoods, and they're all these little tiny hoods all pushed together, and it's one of the friendliest cities in America. You don't realize it when you're out on the block and someone's honking their horn because you're in the crosswalk on a walk, right? And they're impatient.
Like, wait
but
a
generally
minute.
Speaking, the interactions I've had with people on the street in New York, in terms of friendliness and memorability, they dwarf other cities.
Oh, for sure. And I think the thing that people not from here don't actually like think is true is I always run into people on the street.
Yeah.
Like always.
Right.
Always.
Right.
And I think there's this notion that like New York is this,
worse.
Well, true, but like this, this anonymous city, but actually like we're circulating in all of these places and we're on foot, right? Or we're like running errands and so one of the things I think that like makes you nicer.
Yeah, I agree.
Makes you nicer and nicer, both.
Yeah.
But I always say, because we live in New York City, the greatest city in the world, the biggest melting pot in the world, I walk out my door every day. I don't know what I'm going to see. I don't know what to expect. And I'm like, this is my town. My friends tease me because I say all the time, this is my town. I love this. I like going back home and visiting family and stuff, but to me, that's all bland. It's like, I want to see people. Yeah. People of all colors, all nationalities, all religions, or whatever. This is what feeds me. The only thing I will admit, as we say goodbye, is when I'm standing on the corner and I'm walking, I'm a very big people observer, but I do my thing. I walk my pace, whatever. But when people have their face in the phone, and they're scrolling through TikTok, and they bump into me and they step on my shoes. It's like, wait a minute, you just stepped on my shoes. Are you kidding me? Whatever. So we do have our moments, right?
Sure.
We do have our moments, but for the most part, I feed off of people.
Yeah.
And that's what I enjoy. John, Marc, pleasure. Thank you for joining me today. Really appreciate it. Come back again.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll be right back.